Gruesome Magazine.
Hello, once again, I am Doc Rotten, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest streaming and video on-demand horror movies. Each week, my co-hosts Jeff Mohr, Crystal Cleveland, Dave Dreher, and I will take a look at various spooky, scary, and gory genre offerings, and sometimes very silly ones. And that's what we're doing tonight. We're looking at an Asylum film. Oh boy! APE versus Monster. All right.
You know what we're talking about.
If you're going to have Kong, Godzilla versus Kong, you got to have APE versus Monster. So I'm looking forward to this. All right, let me introduce the crew, starting off with the one and only Dave Dreher. Dave, how you doing, sir?
Oh, wait.
No. Hi, Dave. You look like Jeff. You look like Jeff.
I was like, oh.
They call that a faux
I'm
pas.
doing great.
Yeah. I was like, how does Dave usually? He's like, oh, yeah. I don't know. He's so normal. It's hard to be normal.
I know. I can't imitate Dave.
Yeah. You changed his name to Dave, too, so that's so awesome.
Well, Doc, one thing I don't want to do is confuse you. So
yeah, any more than
don't call me Dave. You can call me Dave.
It's a lowercase d, though.
Oh,
it's a lowercase d.
Well, it's
anyway. I'm doing great, and I'm gosh, I hate to admit this, but I'm kind of getting into this whole Asylum thing.
Oh yeah? Well, you got a lot of trash to go through to watch on that.
Well, I'm not that much into it. But
okay, there you go. Also joining this week is Crystal Cleveland. She is the living dead girl. How you doing?
I'm great. I mean, I think this is a interesting and fun asylum. This is a very ambitious asylum film.
It is a very ambitious asylum film. Yes.
I think this is going to be interesting.
It is. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to give our first impressions for the film, and then we're going to discuss it. While we're discussing, we're going to give spoilers for a little that they are, and then we're going to wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. And that's the fun part. Stick around for that. But let's take a look at the film we're talking about. It is, yes, APE versus Monster, one of my favorite titles of the year. From Asylum. It's available on demand and digital April 30th, so it's already out there, so check it out. It's the greatest of all time. The director is Daniel Lusko, writer George Michael Phillips. Cast includes Arianna Scott, Katie Sereika, and Eric Roberts, among others. The synopsis is: an ape crash lands on Earth, which creates a sludge that makes him a passing scorpion. It is not a passing scorpion, by the way.
No.
I don't know why they put that in the credits, but we'll talk about that here in a second. Grow to giant size, resulting in a fight for dominance, because they literally say it's a Gila monster, right?
It's a Gila monster, yeah.
Yep. So I don't know. I didn't. That's not a typo. That's a copy.
The original idea was to remake Black Scorpion.
So they kept that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oops.
All right. So obviously this is a mockbuster. What they call a mockbuster, it's playing on the Godzilla versus Kong movie, and how can we not take a look at this? Well, how can I not torture the rest of you by having us take a look at this? All right, let's give our final. Torture. Okay, all right, but let's find out what our first impressions are. I'm going to say, Dave, you are up first.
Jeff Dave.
Yep. Dave's not here.
He's not here, man.
Jeff Dave.
All right. You know what? The first thing I'm going to say is this is not that I'm a connoisseur or an expert on Asylum, but these are probably the best CGI I've seen in an Asylum film.
It's still shitty, but better than usual. Yeah.
Yes. And in fact, the Gila monster I thought was pretty good, but they don't show it a lot. They show, and the ape, which is in the ape family, is really a chimpanzee.
Oh yeah.
Comes off a spaceship, but if you make them big enough, oh boy. So I texted you guys last night. Nobody responded, so I don't know if you agreed or not. But I thought they must have spent all their money on the CGI because it wasn't on the acting or the writing.
Actually, I did.
Except
respond.
I enjoy.
Yes, you did. You did.
I did it. I do enjoy it. Oh, did you? What did
Yeah, I said Eric Roberts didn't come cheap.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, I don't think he gets. I'm not
He
sure
was
how much
good.
he gets paid, but yeah, Eric Roberts is cool, and I liked Katie Sereika as the Russian scientist agent. She did pretty good too, and the one guy as the comic relief. I forget what his name was. Is that Jones? I'm not sure who that was. The sidekick of
Yeah, I thought it was Jones.
Dr. Murphy. Yeah. So Shane
Yeah,
Hardigan.
Shane Hardigan.
And he was okay. He was kind of the comic relief sidekick. But some of the dialogue was just really bad, and some of the acting was just, it looked too much like somebody working to act instead of like something happening. But you know what? It's Asylum, and I had fun. And I was actually, Eric Roberts has a pretty lengthy part. Now he never leaves that room, so I'm sure it was like a day job, or maybe
It might have been a weekend.
Probably a day
A lot
job.
of dialogue.
there was a lot of dialogue, but still, I think he's pretty good at reeling that stuff off. So anyway, I don't know. I had fun with it. It didn't lose me. The end monster does not look like a Gila monster at all.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Well, but the ape looks exactly like the little ape, only really big. Like, it doesn't change very much. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just rambling. I enjoyed it. For an Asylum flick, I thought it was pretty good.
There you weigh things differently, right? All right, Crystal, you're up next. What was your first impression of Ape versus Monster?
Okay, so the biggest fault of this movie was, unfortunately, the acting. I mean, I mentioned that I thought that a few of these people had no experience, and they don't. So, and it shows, unfortunately. I mean, they could have asked me. I don't understand, but whatever. Whatever. But honestly, Eric was good. I mean, he's very natural. He comes off very great, and I agree that the woman who played the Russian was, even though her accent was maybe a little thick, she made connections, and you kind of felt it. So that was good. That worked for me. I think this film was just so ambitious. I laugh because it's ridiculous at how much that they kind of almost pulled off. I mean, it's a lot.
Battle of the Titans in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Yeah, it honestly was
Even though
really...
in one scene, I'm going to interrupt you. Even though in one scene they're driving on the wrong side of the road because it was filmed overseas. But go ahead anyway.
It's not bad. It's not bad. They could have flipped the image though, the video.
Might be, maybe.
I mean, no, they could have done that.
Oh yeah.
If they wanted to fix it. Maybe, I don't know. Another part that was kind of odd, maybe where they saved a little money, is in editing. There were some weird edits. I'm not sure if that came from the way they shot it or the editor, but this movie had a lot of CGI, and the CGI was okay as well. I honestly think it was better than a lot of Asylum films in a way. I mean, it wasn't nearly as cheesy as I thought it was going to be. It came off a lot more serious.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, compared to like Aquarium of the Dead, which we did a couple weeks back, right?
yeah, and zombies and all. I mean, it's pretty serious. I mean, everyone tried to play it pretty straight. I found it enjoyable. Is it the greatest movie? Absolutely not. But I think it's better than a traditional sci-fi channel movie. To me, I just feel like the CGI was better than normal. Maybe it was just me. I don't know. I liked it. I had fun with it. I am totally with Jeff. I still love Asylum. I think they're still putting out winners for me.
Yeah, I mean, when you go into an Asylum film, you know what you're getting, and this film delivered everything Asylum ever promises. So in that respect, it's a hit, but it is garbage. This okay. It is. Don't make any mistakes. This is a bad movie, but you kind of want it. You want it to be bad,
probably,
right?
yeah.
You want it to be bad in some respect, and it does have a little bit of gumption to it, right? It's got a fairly meaty story, a very surprisingly simple too, right? It's very. We have this this thing lands in the desert, and it's got the orangutan. No, that's a different movie. That's Planet of the Apes. It's got the chimpanzee on it, and things happen. And iguana. What the hell is wrong with me?
That's closer than a scorpion.
It is a scorpion. Yes. Gets involved, and we get a barrage of characters to die lined up one after another. Our heroines make it through and at least close to the end, and that's kind of fun. It tries to have a little bit of emotion to it, and it doesn't really work, but it doesn't have to. But at least it's trying, and it's got Eric Roberts. It's got to have that one name in there or else it's just not quite an Asylum film. And he does a really good job. Although I will say, I don't understand why they couldn't have found him a better fitting suit. Because that suit did not fit him at all. And I wonder if it was made for somebody else and they said, you know what I mean? Because it was like, but he was great in it, and he knew. You could tell he knew what kind of film he was in because he played it just right. It was serious enough, but there was a little bit of a twinkle, right? So he knows what film he's in. Some of the others, maybe.
Okay. I just think about some of the scenes where they're all together, and I don't know if it was the editing or what, but when they're around like the conference table, it felt like it wasn't. They weren't together or something.
It was edited in a way to make you think, and it's probably is true that Eric Roberts wasn't in that scene with them.
Was he? Do you think he wasn't? I guess it's possible he wasn't, but I mean, he clearly. It's hard when you have people who haven't acted against or in a scene with someone who clearly commands.
Yeah.
And it's not even that; it's that he commands the screen. There's something about him that he takes all that energy. Just you kind of need someone who's going to be a little bit more powerful on screen against him, or not technically against him, but you know what I mean. Opposite.
Yeah. And they especially some of the secondary characters that are in there really kind of suffer. I think our leads hold their own enough, but like when he's talking to the general, the one with the southern accent, it's just like, okay, how embarrassing. But at the same time, all right, so we're here for the monsters. Now the only complaint I would be, and this is going to be for almost any of their films, is you don't get enough of the monsters, right? They're there, but it's but when you do get them, when they do make it to DC, it's actually quite fun. It's actually
okay. So for me, there's just a bigger issue. It's like they talk about the chimpanzee growing at this exponential rate, but when it breaks out, I was like, it's a little bit small. It's pretty small, okay? Like when it breaks out of the facility, it's like it breaks out and it's like, oh, well, you're not that big right now.
Yeah, the scale is rapidly changing because they basically say he's like 5 meters tall, which would be 15 feet tall, but he has no problem fitting in a room with it didn't look like a 15-foot ceiling in that room.
It wasn't. No way.
Anyway,
I like the guy with the fire.
No, I that's just what I was thinking about. Whoever saw a flamethrower that was gasoline in a plastic jug hanging on his back? I mean, oh my god! And then he was maniacal with that flame, and the monster just goes thud.
No, it was great.
Steps on it.
I like it when the one guy everybody else has got rifles and everything, and one guy has the missile thing, the little the handheld rockets, and like, what the hell is this? But I think that's obviously that's on purpose, right? That's kind of like
he's got a rocket launcher, and he's standing guard like you would with a rifle, where he's just like
he's always pointing it. Yeah,
stuff he's looking for something to shit. Anyway,
So-
you're right.
So
Tom.
I think I hyped up the movie too much because you're right. Like, it's not a good movie, but it was a good movie for what I was expecting.
Right.
That's
Right.
but I have to be very clear because someone's going to watch this and they're going to be like, this girl has the worst taste ever.
No. Well, so here's another one. Towards the beginning, when the general
loved it.
is leading the guys across the desert when they first find the space capsule, right?
right.
I'm looking at them. There's not a person there that has the same gear or uniform on.
Well, he's wearing jeans,
And the general himself is wearing blue jeans with a
what?
combat jacket, you know?
God, I can't. There was a big thing that I had a huge issue with on that scene, and I cannot for the life of me remember what it was. I was like, "Oh my God, that's so bad." I can't remember. Fudge.
I mean,
but
the budget shows itself often, but it's still, I don't know. It just, there's this weird charm to these.
because they work really. I feel like the reason why they have charm is because I feel like they work really hard on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's low budget films that try to pull off these big movies, and they're just garbage compared to this. I feel like they really work hard at trying to make a decent enough film, and I think they do. I mean, yeah.
I think so. I mean, okay, so I will be honest. There's a lot of Asylum films that I'll say, I want to see, a three-headed shark, but I was like, I can't watch this shit. Can't watch it. And but I did not have any trouble sitting through this. It wasn't a labor or anything. I was enjoying myself, but it wasn't good. Okay, it's just like sometimes you just want cheese, and it delivered, and it actually it kind of won at times, right?
It's a great big tub of gooey cheese. That's,
Gooey.
And then they have these like moments where they're really trying to put these poor actors that can't act into these emotional situations, and I just was like, oof.
Well,
They weren't so bad that it was like, ooh, that's awful, but they were so bad that they just couldn't pull it off.
right. Well, looking at the credits, a lot of these actors are in, very early in their careers. They're in either their first feature role or very early. Eric Roberts aside, because he's like 3,000-4,000 roles.
600, 600 credits.
But yeah, so I mean, with that in mind, it's
not bad, right?
It's not bad. But should you judge a film with having that in mind? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I think you should judge a film always based on everything surrounding it. Absolutely. I think it's completely unfair to freaking judge this compared to Godzilla versus Kong. That's just silly because there's no comparison when you talk money, budget, acting, big studio behind it.
At IMDb, when they have the you look something up and then there's a row of more like this. It's got Godzilla versus Kong.
Well, yeah, because that's what they're. Yeah, well, of course. Clearly, it's a very close second.
I'm thinking the director has done a fair amount of stuff, but it looks like his first foray into like Asylum films, and I think he did a great job.
I thought I saw a couple other. I mean, it could be his first Asylum film, but I saw a couple other titles that sound
So that's
Asylum-like.
Yeah, but this is the writer's
500 mile per hour storm.
Is that an Asylum film? Okay, it might be.
I don't know if it's Asylum. It just sounds like it would be.
George Michael Phillips is his first credit, so it definitely is like, it's kind of like somebody had the idea. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's the guy, the guys at Asylum going, you know this Godzilla movie with the Kong. We gotta get let's go find some people here and let's get an ape and a monster movie together. And
why do they sound like
500
that?
mile per hour storm is an Asylum film. So.
They all do, right?
They totally.
When you get in that position, you gotta have something.
I don't know who they are, but they're like, yeah.
Come on, fellas,
I
we
hear
need
it.
solar. Yeah. By the way, 500 mile per hour storm.
Yeah, see, yeah.
A 500 mile per hour storm is Asylum.
Okay, well there you
okay.
go. So he goes, I gotta do my next
with
picture.
Casper Von Diem.
Oh, I love Casper.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Casper, do you hear this? All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give our final thoughts, our score of 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. But before we do, if you're still listening to this review, we want to thank you so much. We hope you're enjoying this, and not only this one, but others that we have on the site. Check them out. If you'd like to help us out, it's real easy to do. Just hit the subscribe button or share with a friend. It does a lot for us. Of course, we want to hear your comments. You've probably seen Ape vs. Monster, because if you're a fan of the show, this is the movie for you. Let us know what you think of it down below. Let's just do this. Let's dive in. Jeff, you are up first, sir. What is your final thoughts? Your score? Favorite scene?
Well, I mean, if you look at the poster and it's Asylum, and you've seen Asylum films before, that should tell you right there whether you want to watch it or not. I think it's a fun watch comparatively. In terms of a score, I have to like, go along with Crystal. In terms of Asylum films, I'd give it like, if I was rating it among Asylum films, I'd probably give it like a 3.5 or a 3 or 3.5.
I hear you.
But if I compare it to mainstream films, and does it have I don't know. I'm probably in the neighborhood of 1 or 1.5. I did like. I've gained a new appreciation, because seeing Eric Roberts in this movie, I started thinking, we've done a lot of movies with Eric Roberts in them, and I've reviewed some other movies with Eric Roberts in them. And I hate to say this, but I was literally like thinking, what happened to Eric Roberts? The Oscar nominated early in the career of that, and on TV shows, and what's the deal here? And so I looked it up, and I found a pretty good article describing his career arc and interviewing him. And you know what? I got to hand it to the guy. He's kind of in the neighborhood now where he says, I just like to act, and
He just wants to do it. Yeah.
and if I get to act every day, that's great. That's what I'm going to do. And it doesn't,
Good for him.
and even stuff that he thinks he shouldn't, I think it's his wife is his agent. I'm not sure. She says, no, you're going to do this because here's why this is good. And he goes, oh, okay. And I mean, and that
He's a
includes some
smart
videos.
man.
He was
Listen to his
famous
wife,
in
yeah.
videos. So yeah. So I'll tell you what, I have a new appreciation for him. And it's impressive that he goes in here and gives us, it doesn't matter what movie he's in, right?
Mm-hmm.
The quality of the movie, he gives an effort. And that line at the end, I'm not going to call this this is not my favorite scene, but at the end, he does this little thing about faith that is so bad. So bad. But he does it,
pulls it off, right?
without hesitation. Yeah. He's like, I'm going in. So my favorite scene, we already talked about it. I got to do the flamethrower scene, Doc. Sorry.
Oh my God. That cracked me up so much. That guy just.
I right off the bat, I'm looking at what's that? It looked like a tin foil thing, it was a thin aluminum, I don't know, barrel.
Oh,
and then I'm like, what's that on his back? And I'm going, it's a big plastic tub on his back full of, it looks like gasoline or some flammable fluid. And I'm like, oh my God, that's not the way. Anyway.
He was all in too. That guy was.
Oh, he was.
Good for you, guy.
Really quick.
All right, Crystal, you're up next. What's your final thoughts, your score, and favorite scene? Jeff, you're laughing.
So I'm giving this a 3.25 because I liked it and I found it entertaining. And it is an Asylum film. It's silly. It's goofy. It's a little bit of trash. but it's super entertaining, and that's really all I'm basing it on is entertainment.
It is.
Yeah, made me laugh, smile. Yeah, it made me cringe. It did all these things, all these emotions. So, I love Eric Roberts too. I really love his daughter. Oh my gosh, she's so fabulous. So, I am going to say my favorite. Okay, so this movie actually, and I don't know if they did this on purpose. This isn't my favorite scene, but there's actually a moment where they go, "Listen, Linda," and all it made me, what I'm talking about, right? All it made me, "Listen, Linda, listen." The kid, you know what I'm talking about? Sorry, any movie that can have "Listen, Linda," and I'm like, the moment I heard it, I was like. Oh, was that on purpose? But anyway, my favorite scene is the Gila monster versus the helicopter. It was ridiculous.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, no hope. No hope. After that, I was like, there's no hope. They're screwed. I was like, how? Really? Like, this thing is, you guys are dead.
Oh man. Okay. Asylum knows its audience, and it's making this film for its audience. It's not making it for people that want Shakespeare or want Leonardo DiCaprio. They're not wanting that. They want this, and for that they succeeded. Right? They made an Asylum picture that's actually a step above many of their own products. Like I said earlier, there are many films from Asylum that are just painful to watch, and other ones that really excel. The most famous ones being Sharknado, right? But there are others, and this one's more leaning toward. It's not Sharknado.
Mm-mm.
All right, so it doesn't quite reach that level of absurdity, but it's in the ballpark. It's heading in that direction, right? It wants to be that, and it kind of, in the entertainment value of it, it kind of gets there. But it's, I think, in a weird way, I'm saying it's one of their better films.
Yeah, it is.
Although I love Zombies and Aquarium of the Dead. Let's just put that out there, and that's because I have no taste. But so I was going to give this a 3, but that's on the Asylum scale, like Jeff said. You kind of have to do that, and I think if you're going to pull that kind of thing with the criticism, the Asylum films is the ones you're going to do it with. Now, if you don't like Asylum films, this is not going to change your mind.
Nope.
Don't even get near it. But if you enjoy an occasional cheesy movie like this, I don't think you can do much better. This is actually fairly fun. And I just love monsters fighting monsters, and so this did that well. What favorite scene? I'm trying to choose which stupid scene I like the best. Because the flamethrower is pretty damn special. I think I think it might be the first time you really just see the ape, right? And he sees the girl, and he recognizes her, and he goes. he just stops, and he has this weird look on his face, and I'm like, "What the hell was that?"
They grew up together.
But he does it a couple times, and it's the body language is so weird, and I don't know why it just tickled me, and it's stuck in my head. If it's not that, it's the guy with the rocket launcher. Just these little touches that are just like, what the hell are you thinking? And then, or like, call me girl again, and there were just some funny things.
That guy, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh man. I kind of like the scene where they're facing off against the army, and trying for the army wants to shoot. What was the ape's name? He had a name. Oh God, I forgot what the name is. But they wanted to shoot him, and they stood in front of the door.
I don't remember.
That's terrible. I can't remember either. It wasn't a memorable name. But anyway, so there you go.
Abraham.
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 Thank you.
Mhm.
Abraham. Sorry, all the Abrahams out there. I am
Jeez.
so sorry.
It's a
Honestly,
very
never
respectable
heard that
name.
before, have you, Abe?
Honest Abe.
Oh, okay.
Get it? Get it?
All right, that's our review for Ape versus Monster. You know you're gonna race out to see it right now. Crystal, yes, and
Yeah.
Jeff, Dave. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. This was a lot of fun.
It was fun. You
See
were like
what-
a comedy act.
What I can
Totally
torture you
gonna
with.
take this on the
And
road.
just a message to Dave. This is what happens when you don't come on the show.
Yep.
I missed you so much. I still introduced you, Dave. I didn't even
I
know I was
get
going to
the
do it.
big-
It was just
I didn't get the
muscle
big-
memory. It was. I know.
I know.
But it was muscle memory. It just kind of came out. Like, oh, okay. Let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, Dave.